Good morning, everyone. So, today's topic is colonialism and tribal societies. This is a topic of history, and we will study mainly about tribal groups, hunter gatherers, and some laws passed regarding it. How did tribal groups live? By the 19th century, tribal people in different parts of India were involved in variety of activities. Like the tribal people are always involved in different type of varieties of activities, like you will study further also. So they had a tribal group known as Jhum cultivators. They practiced shifting cultivation. It was done on small patches of land, mostly in forest. The cultivators cut the tree tops to allow sunlight to reach the ground, and they burned the vegetation on the land to clear for its cultivation. So they mostly use small patches of land, and the tribal people, as you know, mostly live in forest areas only. So they used to cut the tree top so that sunlight could get to the ground easily, and therefore then they can burn after drying up the vegetation. They can burn it, and later they will use it for cultivation purposes. They spread the ash from the firing, which contained potash, to fertilize the soil. The ash that came from the fire was used as a fertilizer to the soil. They used the axe to cut the trees, the hoe to scratch the soil in order to prepare for cultivation. They broadcast the seeds, that is, scattered the seeds in the field instead of plowing the land and sowing the seeds. As you know, nowadays we used to sow the seeds. The farmers used to plow the field and then sow seeds. But at that time, tribal people used to scatter the seeds in the field and they grow it on their own. Once the crop was ready and harvested, they moved to another field. A field that has been cultivated once was left fallow for several years. So tribal people used to move from one place to another. Once the cultivation is done at one land, they used to move to another one, and that land which was early used for cultivation was left barren for many years. Shifting cultivators were found in hilly and forested tracts of northeast and central India. The lives of these tribal people depended upon free movement within forests and on being able to use the land and forest for growing their crops. That is the only way they could practice shifting cultivation. So, shifting cultivation, they used to practice from one place to another. Tribal people used to move freely in the forest, like they used to go from one forest to another forest. They used to harvest their crops, and they similarly this pattern goes on, and they practice shifting cultivation. So, hunted and gatherers. These were the people who ate fruits, roots collected from the forest, cooked food with the oil they extracted from the seeds of sal and mau. So they were completely, their life was based on, the existence or survival was based on forest goods and produce. The food they used to eat was completely like organic. Tribal groups often needed to buy or sell in order to be able to get the goods they were not produced within the locality. So completely, the goods they could not get in the forest area for the survival. They used to have barter system, and they were dependent on traders and moneylenders also. This led to their dependence, and they used to have barter system in earlier times. So what exactly is mahua? There are some questions for you, and the answers of these questions will be given in the description box below this video. Do pause the video and solve these questions, and later check it from the description box given below. What exactly is mahua? A stem of a tree, a flower that is eaten or used to make alcohol, root of the tree, leaves of a tree. Next, Jhum cultivators plow the land and sow seeds. This statement is true or false? Some important features of Jhum cultivation are given below. Pick out the one that is not related to Jhum cultivation. So there are four options. The four options follows like this. Potash was used to fertilize the soil. This type of cultivation is done on large patches of land. Once a crop is harvested, they move to another virgin land and the old one remained fallow for many years. The cultivators cut the tree tops to allow sunlight to reach the ground and burn the vegetation on the land to clear it for cultivation. So choose the appropriate answer, students. Herder. A herder that is lived by herding and rearing animals. They were pastoralists who moved from herds of cattle or sheep according to the season. When the grasses in one place are exhausted, they move to another area. So there are different herder groups in different areas, like the Van Gujars of the Punjab Hills and the Labadis of Andhra Pradesh were herders. The Gaddis of Kulus were shepherds, and the Bakarwals of Kashmir reared goats. So these are some herders groups of different areas doing different activities. Settled cultivation. Earlier we have studied shifting cultivation. Now we are going to study settled cultivation. Even before the 19th century, many from within the tribal groups have begun settling down and cultivating their fields in one place after moving from one place to another. So now there is a difference. Earlier they used to move from one place to another. Now they live in a particular area and they used to do cultivation at the same place year after year only. Now earlier they used to scatter the seeds. Now they start plowing it, sowing seeds in this. In many cases, like the Mundas of Chotanagpur, the land belonged to a clan as a whole. So there is a complete clan known as Mundas of Chotanagpur. Completely a land belongs to the whole clan itself. This is example given by them. All members of the clan were regarded as descendants of the original settlers who has first cleared the land. Therefore, all of them had a right on the land. So similarly, whosoever plowed or cultivated the land earlier, so land goes to them. Similar in easy simple ways, it means that. Very often, some people within the clan acquired more power than others. Some become chiefs, some other followers. Powerful men often rented their land instead of cultivating it themselves. Like this, only people start owning more land. They become chiefs and they become powerful people. And later, they don't want to cultivate the land. They can give it on rent to other farmers or peasants as well. British officials saw settled tribal groups like Gonds and Santhals as more civilized than hunter gatherers or shifting cultivators. So they have mentioned a group, the Gonds and Santhals. They are more civilized than the hunter gatherers and the shifting cultivators. Those who lived in forests were considered to be wild and savage. They needed to be settled and civilized. So there is another P instructions for you. British officials saw settled tribal groups as more civilized. True or false? Another question is Van Gujars are Jhum cultivators, settled cultivators, herders, and hunter gatherers. Colonial rule and tribal lives. What happened to the tribal chiefs? Before the arrival of the British, tribal chiefs enjoyed economic power and had the right to administer and control their territories. As I told you earlier, they became chiefs, they become powerful men. Before the British came India, they had a huge economic control over the people and the land. Under the British rule, the functions and power of the tribal chiefs changed as well. They were allowed to keep the land titles but lost their administrative rights and were forced to follow the laws made by British rule. So, as Britishers came in India, they influenced these tribal chiefs. Their power was taken from them. Now, they were following the instructions of the Britishers and the economic. Though for the name and sake they are the same tribal chiefs, but the main power is in the hand of British, and the chiefs are also following the orders of the British people. Rules made by the British took out the entitlements and power to administer the forest area. What happened to the shifting cultivators? The British were uncomfortable with shifting cultivators as it was more easy to control a settled group. So Britishers could not much control with do not have much control on shifting cultivators as they moved from one place to another, and it was difficult for them to control them. Britishers wanted to have regular revenue source from the state and introduce land settlements. The British effort to settle Jhum cultivators was not very successful in on eastern part of land as land was not fertile enough. After facing widespread protests, the British had to allow them the right to carry on shifting cultivation in some parts of the forest. In most of the central parts, shifting cultivation was prohibited and land was assigned to the cultivation. So the Jhum cultivators, the initiative took by Britishers on them was not that enough successful because the land was not fertile. Britishers allowed to right to carry shifting cultivation in only some parts of the region, and some part of the regions it was prohibited. Forest laws and their impact. The life of the tribal groups was directly connected to the forest. Obviously, like the tribal people lived in forest, so their life was connected to forest only. The Britishers extended their control over all forest and declared them as the state property. Reserved forests were for producing timber, which the Britishers wanted, but for the purpose of cheap labor, for the forest village was settled within the forest. In reserved forest, people were not allowed to move freely and practice Jhum cultivation. So that is the Britishers had complete control over the forest as well. They owned it as their own property. So some rights were taken from the people. Jhum cultivators were not able to do cultivation easily. This law impacted the very survival of tribals as they were mainly dependent on the forest and its products. Mean, many tribal groups reacted against the colonial forest laws and rose in an open rebellion. So people were not happy with the British laws made known as forest laws. So they had an open rebellion against them. So there's a famous personality, a tribal person known as Birsa Munda, and we're going to study about him today. A movement began under the leadership. So all these tribal groups were facing difficulties by the laws made by the Britishers. So they came under the influence of Birsa Munda. That rebellion that I was talking about, he was the leader of that rebellion. The Britisher officials were worried as the political aim of the Birsa movement was to drive out missionaries, moneylenders, Hindu landlords, and the government, and set up a Munda Raj with Birsa as its lead. So they not like or their people were taking rents from them, the money lenders who were giving money to them. They want to boycott all of them through this movement and they want to have a Munda Raj in which Birsa would be the head of it. In 1895, Birsa Munda was arrested during the rebellion. Obviously, police will investigate them. So Birsa Munda was arrested in 1895. He was released in 1897 and he toured the villages to gather support. He urged people to destroy Ravana, the Kush, and the Europeans and establish a kingdom under his leadership. So when he was released, he went village to village. He gathered the support of people and he wanted to destroy the Britishers and the Europeans. And he used to call them by name Ravana. In 1900, Birsa died of cholera and the movement faded out. So as you know, when the leader is not there, how will that move? The people get scattered. They're not able to conduct a proper movement under any leadership. So in 1900, Birsa died of his poor health. He died of cholera, and movement just went out. So there's another question for you students. How did Birsa Munda died? He died of cholera. He died of malaria. He was captured by British and killed. He committed suicide. So students, mark your answers. And thank you so much for your patience hearing. Thank you.